Welcome back to Magic Hour Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Taylor Page.
And I'm Claire. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
November listener questions. We are coming to the end of season 2. We only have a handful of episodes left before we take our break. And season 1, we only did 39 episodes, which is a lot of episodes. But by this point, we're past that. We're in the 40s and I'm feeling it. I'm ready for a little bit of a break. It's a lot, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about that every week we've put out an episode. It's really amazing, and I'm very proud of us.
Yes, me too. It's feeling like I remember last November, I had COVID for a long time in October and November. And I was feeling kind of like burnt out and at this place in my career where I just really had to change everything. And I'm feeling a similar way this year, but not as intensely. Like I'm not so burnt out that like everything has to change, but I am feeling the call to change and growth. And so maybe as a Scorpio in Scorpio season, it's just like a check-in point for me that it keeps hitting me in this way of like what needs to die, what needs to go. And I know when this comes out, I think it's going to be Sagittarius season, but we're recording in Scorpio season. And I just feel like there's this constant refinement and change. Like I just did my last Earth Angel Club, and that was just a perfect example of something that I started in 2022. And there were aspects of it that I really loved, but other things that weren't inspiring me as much as this 2025 version of self. And so I'm just really excited because I feel like I'm in this place where I'm just really trusting what needs to go so that something new can come in. And I'm really all about taking breaks and sitting in the unknown so that new things can start to take shape.
Yeah, it's like creating that space so that something new can come in. I think that can be something we're all kind of hesitant to do or feels really scary because it's unknown and we want to fill the space with what we know and we want to have an answer. But truly giving ourselves that space is how we find the answers, I think. And so, yeah, and it makes sense with the time of year that it's like, time to reflect and slow down and take a look at what's working and what isn't and what's lighting us up and what's draining us. I think it's so important to check in on that stuff because, we were just talking about this. Life can move so fast sometimes and you're just going from one thing to the next. I feel like this month has just flown by, and I think it's so important to carve out that time for ourselves, even if it's just like an hour, to really sit with yourself and connect into like what is lighting you up and what needs to go.
Yeah. And I was joking about this with our friend Caitlin. We were talking about like, why does it have to be so obvious what needs to go? Why does it have to be so intense? Like, I've been aware for quite some time that Earth Angel Club was coming to an end, and I was talking about it with Caitlin behind the scenes, who is the event host for my virtual gatherings. I was like, this last EAC, I was like dragging and I was so busy and had so many other things I was juggling. And then I also had Earth Angel Club. I was like, you guys, I already got the message. Like, this is the last Earth Angel Club. Like, it really comes back to that Plutonian question of how heavy does it have to get before you let it go. And I feel like the heaviness just has infinite, it can dial up to such infinite levels until you get the message.
Because so often we won't listen to the message, that's been true for me with many things, or it's like, I'll hear it, but I won't trust it. I'll hear it again and I'll question it. And then I'll hear it and I'll sit with it for a little while. And it's like, I always say this to my roommate and bestie, Mandy, but I'm like, it takes the time that it takes for us to get the message or to learn the lesson, to have the courage to take the leap. And usually when you look back on it, you wish you could have gotten there a little bit faster. And that's also something I'm trying to take on of like, how can I act on those things with a little bit more decisiveness? Because I think particularly I'm someone who will be very cautious to take the leap and really like assess and analyze and decide and discuss and assess again and put it down for a while. And maybe that's my process, but I'm trying to have a little bit more of an active energy with it of just like, take the action. If it doesn't feel aligned, take the action. And hopefully it won't take me so long in this next chapter of my life to kind of like get into the new things that are trying to come in.
Yeah, it's a practice too. Like trusting your knowing is a practice, but as soon as you start to wake up to it at a deeper level and you start to see these things, you can't go back to sleep and unsee them anymore. So, like when you start to get in the practice of trusting your knowing and listening in a deeper way to your heart, I think it does naturally get faster and faster because it gets harder and harder to ignore once you start.
Yeah, I feel that so deeply. It's kind of funny now for me to think back to what was it like before I was really this connected to my inner knowing? Or was I always this connected? But I feel like for sure not. And now it's like a feeling or a voice, kind of a hard way to describe the sensation of it, but that can't be ignored. It's very clear, it's very real, and I know it now, so I can't not know it now.
Yeah, it will not be ignored. I've been in my Becoming the Oracle first round of the mentorship program, and that has just been so special. And, it's all about like trusting our knowing. And we've been doing really deep dives. Like a lot of my mentees have told me, like a lot of other programs I've done have been focused a lot on like fundamentals and developing your clairs. But in this container, it's so much deeper than that. It really is about becoming the oracle, meaning like the personal growth, the inner villain voice work, the shadow work to feel comfortable enough to trust your knowing, to have your nervous system regulated enough to say your truth. There's so many, like when I was at Arthur Findlay College at that advanced week that I went to for mediumship, which you can listen to those episodes. The first one is 114. I was there at this college in the UK for like advanced level mediums. And so many of them had amazing fundamentals, had amazing connections, were developed for decades, but they didn't do the personal development growth or the side of it of like overcoming the fear. And I saw the ways that that held them back. Many of them were not full time readers, even though they would have liked to. Many of them were too scared to stand up and demonstrate, even though they were really amazing mediums. Many of them were in self doubt and their ego was running the show instead of their playful curiosity. And I saw these pitfalls that are more common than just the mechanical things or missing a message or misinterpreting something or letting imagination masquerade as intuition. Like, of course, there are common mechanical things that we can talk about. But if we don't fuse the soul growth level of our evolution and that practice of trusting our knowing outside of readings, then there's only so far we can go as a reader or an oracle too, or those fears and shadows will creep up and sabotage us every time.
Yeah, that is so true. And I feel like that applies to so much of what we do. Like, I've even felt like that in my development as an actor, where once I started to really do the inner work on myself, I could feel that my creativity and my performance was so much deeper and more profound because it's like that saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if your witch wound is active, it will be active in everything you do, not just, in your day to day life, but in your creativity, in your business, in your spirituality, in your connection to self. Like those elements of self development and growth are the key, I think, to unlocking every aspect of our life. And so there's nothing more profound or productive, I think, that we can do than to like connect to ourselves, heal ourselves, like really explore those elements that are holding us back. And I think that's like unlocks the magic in everything we do.
Yeah. And with intuitive development, it's like such a master class in that because there's nothing except you in your own head with your own senses. It takes away everything else that you could focus on or look at or develop. It's like truly the personal development journey and intuitive development journey are the same exact thing because it all comes back to trusting ourselves. And if we don't respect and love ourselves, we don't trust ourselves. So it's just so powerful and it's been so amazing. Like my mentees are just such rock stars and I'm so proud of them. And there's a spectrum of experience levels. Like some have just taken my prerequisites and then jumped in, others have been doing other development things for a few years. It's just been such a beautiful container and so fun for me to get to guide them. It's such an honor. And going back to what you were saying about trusting your knowing, I think that this is really important too, because it also ties to clairsentience, which is psychic feeling. And I teach that clairsentience is the most important clair. And I think that Claire's like seeing and hearing and even knowing sometimes get like all of the applause and all of the accolades. And it's just like when we see Hollywood versions of connection, that's what we're looking at. Like crystal ball gazing and seeing movie picture quality of what's going to happen. But feeling is so important because it's the only objective Claire, meaning we actually feel it in our physical body. Whereas seeing, hearing, and knowing are flashes of information that come through our imagination muscles. When we are feeling, we're actually feeling it objectively in our physical body. So that is a really amazing gift because it gives you so much to go off of. And even just connecting with our knowing in our physical body, like how does our body feel around somebody? What does our heart deep down feel? What does our body feel? Like there were certain guys that I dated in the past who I would always just feel sick and low energy after I hung out with them. And my mind would try to convince me that I didn't. But the truth of the feeling was right there. So, feeling and connecting to our feelings, listening to our feelings. We don't have to believe every feeling that we have is like, this is going to be how I feel forever. But there's important messages from our feeling and just practicing going back to that idea of honoring our knowing. Part of that is like really honoring our feelings and listening to them. Because if we don't, who will?
Yes, that's so, so true. And I feel like our feelings can be more pure because it's like our knowing or our mind, our mind tries to talk us into and out of so many things, like you said. It's like, you're dating that guy and you feel icky around them, but your brain will talk you out of it because of what its objective is, which is I want this to work and I want this guy to be a good thing. So I'm gonna convince myself it is, but I think I've really been having such a interesting journey with that in terms of like people I'm meeting and the way that I feel around them and trusting in that it's okay that those feelings are happening and I can trust that that is like a signpost even if maybe the people around me don't agree or even if people are trying to convince me like this person is good to have around, I am having that feeling of like this isn't in alignment. And it's been a really cool journey to like trust that and then watch it unfold and then therefore be able to trust it even further as I see more and more evidence of like, yeah, I just don't think this is in alignment. And that feeling was there immediately and see it was guiding me. It was showing me something that maybe my knowing couldn't have gotten to yet.
Yes, the feeling gives you something to go off of, whereas the knowing can sometimes be easier to gaslight ourselves out of because it's a flash and it's like something that could be like, am I just thinking that I know this, but is it really rooted in something? And that's why the feeling is so important to develop because intuitive information always comes with a feeling, even a knowing. It might feel embodied, urgent, powerful, warm. Like there's always a sensation of feeling when it is a psychic knowing. And that feeling is never fear, as I say. And that's such a good example of, how our intuition is the sum of all the times we've trusted ourselves. And so even just like within my mentorship container, it's been really amazing to see how everybody's guides are leading them in their authentic, unique ways that are different from each other. So even though we're all in the same container, I'm guiding people, with, of course, just objective truth, but there's also people where there's a pick your own adventure element because your guides are working with you in your way and your timing and you're becoming the oracle for a particular reason and a particular frequency, which is beautiful. Like there's no two oracles that are the same. And I think it's really beautiful how, we've been working on creating a symbolic language with our guides and starting off there, which is just a good way for people starting out to build a language. And then as you get more advanced, you can become more literal with the images and with what's coming in. But it's just nice when you're starting out to have a symbolic language. It's kind of like a little graduation step up from working with oracle cards, where it's just kind of like how you associate things with the cards, then you take the cards away and you start to associate things with like symbols and colors and feelings that are coming up. And so there's been a couple students who are like, it's just not working for me. Like I'm not getting symbolic language. And when I tune into that and help guide them and we talk about it, it's like, yeah, because you're meant to do mediumship and less spirit guide angel work, which is very symbolic. And your angels, your guides are guiding you to stay very literal. So that's how spirit wants to talk. So we're going to keep you literal. And don't worry, everything in this program is just a suggestion. And let's focus on how we can get you honed into more specifics. And so there's just really beautiful ways that, like, there's no one size fits all for this work and this path. And even part of trusting your knowing is knowing what isn't working for you either, where like following the momentum of where our consciousness is being led and trusting our own unique path with it.
I love that. And I think that's such an important piece that a lot of us bump up against because we have an idea and actually ties into a question hopefully we'll get to in this episode. But I feel like we have an idea of how it should be and how it should look, maybe because of an example or a mentor like you. Like we see how Taylor is able to express her experience through it. And so we feel the pressure of like, okay, that's how this works. And I'm not getting it like that. So it's not working for me. I felt that way in moments where I'm like, oh, wow, like she pulls a card and she holds the card and she like is getting something. And I don't know that I feel that at all. I feel kind of like, whoops, my finger grazed this card. So I'm going to go with it. And
Mhm.
so I think in the past, I've let that make me feel limited or like, okay, clearly I don't have the same gifts. And perhaps that is true to a degree, but I think it points to more what you were just saying of like, of course, we're all unique individuals. So our connection and our gifts will be unique as well. And they won't look like the next person. So just because that's Taylor's experience or her connection looks a certain way, don't feel like your connection has to look that same way. Allow it to lead you, like she was saying, allow it to reveal itself in the ways that feel connected to you. And maybe it'll surprise you even in the way that it shows up.
Absolutely. And for me, clairtangency, like psychic touch, has always been super online for me. I can't even wear secondhand clothes because I'm so sensitive to the energy of other people that are in them. And I've always been that way. Like I feel things on cards. It's funny because I would tell my mom this when I was still in the dating world. Like I can't hold hands with people. Like it's too intense for me. Kissing is less intimate to me than holding hands. And it's always been that way. And then I knew that Ari was special because I held his hand really early on and I didn't feel overwhelmed by it. So then if you see somebody whose psychic sense of touch is so turned on, like feeling things from the cards and getting things from the cards, but you're a deep knower or feeler or seer or something else, it's like just setting yourself up to be in the arena that best is the puzzle piece best fit for your clairs. So, yeah, I love that. And I'm going to be doing a second round of becoming the Oracle in early 2026. If you're interested, you can go to angelsandamethyst.com and there's a little tab there that says Becoming the Oracle under offerings. You can fill out an application. I take 8 mentees at a time, and I think there are 10 to 12 people on the wait list for this next one. But, we never know what happens or if it will be the right timing. So if you feel called, apply. And I'm going to continue to take mentees first come, first serve. And the ones that I think are a good fit, you'll be in line for whatever container opens in the future. The Be Your Own Angelic Intuitive Workshop and the Healing the Witch Wound Workshop are the prerequisites for this course because they cover a lot of really important things that we're not going to go backwards and go over again. We're going to take off from that launching point. So definitely check out those prereqs as well. And code 333 gives $33 off of the 3-part workshops. So yay.
So exciting.
I know. It's been so magical and so fun. And I've integrated Slack as well. So I just am like constantly leaving my mentees like voice notes about things. And it's just so fun. So let's get into the book rec for November. This is going back to mediumship. Droplets of God is a book about a very famous evidential medium in the UK, Mavis Patilla. It was written by Suzanne Geisman, who's a pretty famous American medium. And this book has been so beautiful. First of all, it's been so synchronistic for me to read it at the same time that I started my mentorship program because Mavis in the book talks a lot about when she first started to teach mediumship and what came up for her with that. So I was like, that's a really beautiful synchronicity. But basically, it's this story of this psychic medium who ended up being a really powerful and prominent teacher at Arthur Findlay College in her day. She's in the spirit world now. And she basically started off being like very scared of her connection. She had objective clairvoyance, meaning with her actual physical eyes, she would see people like standing in her kitchen, standing in her bedroom. And she thought she was going crazy and she wanted nothing to do with it. And so it's basically about her journey of like overcoming the fear. She was really sick and almost died. And then like all of these synchronicities happened and spirits were coming to her as she was dying. It was just like a really intense life that she had, a really kind of tragic life that she had in the first part of it. And then I'm only halfway through the book, but there's some amazing stories and it's just so beautiful and relatable on so many levels. And she's just so humble. There's a little story in the book that I just want to share with you guys. So, you know how I say spirit is all love and there's so much misinformation and people are like, "Oh, this house is haunted and blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, houses aren't really haunted, but spirits are trying to reach people. Like people are almost more haunted than places because, it's like they're not restricted by location. They can be everywhere or nowhere. It's like it has nothing to do about the house. They're trying to get your attention. So there's a story in the book. Mavis lived in this like really small town in England, and there was like a local swimming pool, and everybody would go to the local swimming pool. And by this point, she had started doing demonstrations at spiritualist churches. So she was starting to get a little bit of a reputation and a name for herself in the spiritualist community. And so someone called her one day and said, "Mavis, we have a problem at the local swimming pool. There's a poltergeist here, and we really need you to come down here and take care of it. We're all really scared and it feels really evil." So she's like, "Okay, let's do this. Let's see what's going to happen here." She goes to the pool and she opens up mediumship wise, and the owner of the pool is like, "It's down in the boiler room." And he was like, "Everybody that goes there feels cold and things are rattling and we all have a sense of unease and lights are flickering. Like it's surely an evil spirit," which, by the way, do any of those things really sound harmful or just ways to get attention? So then she was like, "Okay, let me see what's going on." So she goes down into the boiler room and all of that like phenomenon happens again. It gets cold, it feels intense. She gets scared, which is really funny. So she's like, "I would like to get out of the boiler room." So she's like, "Okay, I see what you guys are saying. Now get me out of here." And I found that to be like really sweet. Her story is so endearing. So she goes out and she's like, "I need a moment by myself." And she sits by the pool and she opens up and she senses the spirit of a man there that wants to get her attention. And she goes and sits by this like spirit of this man. And he looks kind of like homeless and disheveled and just a little rough around the edges. And he basically told her, like, before it was a public pool, it was like a private pool in some way. And he drowned in that pool one day. And he said, "There's a lifeguard here that isn't watching the kids. And the view from the lifeguard tower doesn't see the kids' pool. And I'm trying to get everybody's attention so that they'll fix that because I don't want kids to drown. And like in the spirit world, I've made it my purpose to protect these kids so they don't go out the way I went out. And I've just been trying to get that message to them. So she told the owner of the pool that, and she's like, this spirit person is here who says that he drowned. And he also said something, and I'm forgetting now, about like the nature of what the place used to be, which the owner verified. And she said, you need to like change the lifeguard tower so that there's a clearer view of the kids' pool or someone's going to drown. And so the owner of the pool did that and changed the lifeguard tower, and everything stopped. All the phenomenon that was like scaring them stopped, because that's all that spirit person wanted, was to make sure that like he sensed that a kid was going to drown and he wanted to make sure that didn't happen. And I just found that story to be so validating with my personal knowledge about the spirit world and how I feel. It's like it's always just trying to get our attention for a reason, and it's never to hurt us or harm us.
That's so great. And it's such a beautifully aligned example of what you've been saying so much on the podcast and for so long. I feel like it's literally what you keep saying when this topic comes up. And here's an example of a person you've never met from how many years ago, a random book that you discovered and found. It's like you didn't seek out this example, but it's another medium saying the exact same thing you've been saying, that, we're scared of the unknown. So, of course, like rattling, we jump to something's going to get me. But I love how you always point out to like, when has anything got anyone? When has that happened? And then a like scary monster came and grabbed you and took you to the beyond. Like, never. That's never happened. It's just a way of communication. And if we can open ourselves to the communication, then we can get the message. And then hopefully, they don't need to continue to try and rattle the lights or whatever.
It's interesting too, even the association with kind of closed, dark, dim places being the most haunted in quotes, because now I know, like with more knowledge of the spirit world, when you're in bigger spaces with a lot of light, it's harder to build the power. The power kind of gets like dissolved a little bit, or it's harder to concentrate it in bigger open area spaces. And small, tight, enclosed spaces. That's why, mediums at Arthur Findlay College like sit in a cabinet. That's why when I'm doing mediumship readings from my office, I love my office. It's a perfect size. And I close the windows and I like to be in relative darkness when I'm doing mediumship. It's just how I like it, because I feel almost this enclosed build of energy. And so I think it's so spooky to us being in like dark places and small places. But I think it's also just where the spirit world can build the most power.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share that story. And this book, especially if you're a medium or just interested in it, is so good. Yeah. So can't recommend that enough. Let's go into some listener questions.
Okay. This is a question from Cassandra. Hi, thank you so much for creating this space for people to come to. It helped me, and I'm sure so many others, grow spiritually, to understand myself better, to feel less alone, and I've learned so much. I was just listening to Taylor talking about how entitlement can block abundance, and a lot of people are feeling stuck at the moment. I have definitely been feeling this. I feel like my manifestations aren't coming to fruition. I've been feeling like despite the positive energy I try to put out, negativity keeps coming back to me. Although I know I have a ton to be grateful for, it's like I'm stuck at this point in growth. My question is, what is the difference between manifesting/hoping for more abundance or growth and entitlement? Sometimes when I try to manifest positive things or abundance to come my way, I envision that I do deserve it or that it's already mine, and I don't want that to seem entitled. I hadn't thought of it that way before, but maybe that's part of my problem at the moment. Thank you so much. I can't wait to hear what you guys think if you get a chance to see this, Cassandra.
Thank you for this question, Cassandra. It's really a good one and it's very layered. So I want to break down some of the layers. I think that this kind of ties into something Claire and I were talking about in the beginning of honoring your knowing, which is part of honoring your emotions. And I think that there can be a narrative in manifestation in spiritual places that are like, where you put your focus is like what you're manifesting, and what you think about is what you're manifesting. that it's actually our deeply either conscious or subconscious, deeply held beliefs is where we manifest from. There's a couple things that you said here that's really interesting. Like, I'm trying to be positive, but negativity keeps coming to me. That to me says that there might be a little bit of avoidance of looking at deeper things, or fear that looking at the negativity or the frustration might manifest more of it, which is just a very common narrative. And also, it's not fun as a human being to like look at and examine negativity. Like, none of us want to be in that emotional state. But I think that when I hear this, there might be emotional messengers in the form of negativity that want to be listened to and heard, so that you can actually authentically be in a positive place instead of trying to be in a positive place, like you said. So I think that there's deeper consideration of where those frequencies are coming up, what makes something a dead end frequency. So she's referencing episode 233. If you haven't heard that episode yet, definitely go back. I talk about what I call dead end frequencies. And basically, those are frequencies that when you stay in them for too long, they become a dead end. There's no like soul growth or evolution past it. So just because something becomes a dead end frequency doesn't mean it starts that way. Dead end frequencies become dead end frequencies when we don't get the message, the lesson, or take our power back from something and just stay in the problem, what's not enough, victim mentality, et cetera, et cetera. So if negativity is coming up, or even entitlement is coming up, I wouldn't go into it by saying like, oh, I'm in a dead end frequency. I would just say, I'm not going to allow myself to stay in this sense of entitlement for a very long time, but I will listen to it. Where do I feel like I'm owed something by life? Where is this sense of entitlement coming from, whether it's family of origin or media, whatever it is? So there is this sense of just not running from the negativity, but actually embracing it with such a greater sense of love and with yourself and for yourself, that you can transmute it and alchemize it to authentically being in that positive state. And so when you said, like, I see it as mine, and when I'm manifesting, I hold positive thoughts about it, that's not entitlement. Entitlement is from this place of feeling owed something and then getting bitter when you don't receive what you're owed. And instead of changing anything about yourself or your approach or releasing expectations of what other people should be doing, it becomes a dead end frequency when you stay there instead of seeing how you can change yourself to come back into alignment, or to manage your expectations, or to show up a different way. And so I think it's really beautiful to be like, I see myself as worthy of this. And that does not mean that you're entitled. So the other thing I want to say is, when you said, what's the difference between manifestation and hoping versus entitlement? I actually think manifestation and hoping are two very different things. I think that manifestation is active. Manifesting is a verb where it's like, what am I doing? How am I healing? What is my intention? It's sort of like this active walking hand in hand with your spirit guides in the universe. And it's like, okay, I'm listening and I'm co creating, and I'm also taking aligned actions and clearing my shadows and healing myself so that I can walk hand in hand with the universe and my spirit guides on my highest timeline. Whereas hoping is more of an inactive word, where it's just kind of like hoping and wishing and waiting and a little bit more passive. And to me, hoping feels very tied to like patriarchal PR, like the princess in the tower that's hoping and waiting for their happy ever after or whatever it is. And we have every single tool, answer, and thing that we need at our disposal in this world. And I'm just not a fan of hoping, because I think there's a more powerful choice than hoping and wishing. I think that that's almost staying in this place that's not present. Like, it's putting you into a place where it's hoping and wishing about what's to come or what will be, instead of making the most of the magic and the choices that are right here, right now in front of you. And as you currently choose like power and love and authenticity and moment to moment, that's what builds your highest timeline. And hoping to me is almost an expression of not being in trust, like not trusting what will come. So it doesn't mean you can't have goals or even like hope for something in the sense of it'd be cool if my life went this direction or that direction, or I would like this thing. But I think actively staying and hoping for too long takes you out of what's in your power here and now. And it's just not as strong of a forward momentum vibration and hoping as like manifesting. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of layers here. But when the dead end frequencies come up, don't run from them thinking that, like, oh my gosh, I'm in a dead end frequency. It only becomes a dead end frequency when you're stewing in it for a prolonged amount of time and not listening to the deeper wound, difficult truth, or shadow underneath it that's pulling the puppet strings.
Yes, I love this question because I super relate. And it's funny, recently I've been feeling some frustration around the idea of manifesting. And I've been having my own little pity party of like, I guess I'm just not good at manifesting because I've been trying to manifest for forever and all my dreams haven't come true. And so I guess it's me and I'm the problem, which is, some of my inner work that I am trying to undo. I think manifesting and the idea of it is like really tricky. There's like a lot of traps within it, or maybe traps isn't the right word, but it can be like a tricky concept to really wrap your mind around. And I personally struggle with it where I try to do it and then I feel like I'm doing it wrong. And then I get frustrated. And then I feel like I'm in a dead end frequency of it's almost like I'll get mad at the universe, if that makes sense. And I think that is sort of that entitlement frequency of like, what the hell? I deserve these things. And like, why haven't you given them to me? I'm staying positive. I guess I'm not positive enough, like that's my inner monologue about it or whatever. So I really relate. And I think it can be difficult to navigate. So thank you for this question because I needed to hear it and I needed to hear what Taylor had to say about it as well. But I really liked what you said too about hoping versus manifesting and the active element of manifesting, because I think sometimes it can feel like this tricky thing of like, okay, I just need to feel like I have it, or I need to change my frequency to really feel safe to receive it. And I think that can be like kind of a elusive thing of like, okay, I think I feel safe. Do I feel safe? It's like I don't know how active that really feels. And I have also felt that feeling of the like hoping version of manifesting where I'm writing the list of the way I want it to be, or I'm envisioning the partner and I'm envisioning the career. And it feels like a rejection of now. And like I'm saying, now isn't enough. And I want to be somewhere else from here where I have the things that I want. So I'm pretending that that's what's happening or trying to feel like that's what's happening. And that has felt like another trap or a place that I'm stuck. So I really liked what you said about the like active manifesting of being about even like seeing what's coming up of like Taylor said of like I'm feeling entitled for these things or I'm feeling negative. So what is that negativity showing me and how can I alchemize that in this moment to heal myself or to create in this day? Like an example for me is with my career, I don't feel like I'm where I want to be. And that brings me a lot of sadness because I want to be spending my days performing. And most of my days, I don't get to do that. But I will then try and think about how today can I be creative with what is in front of me? How can I, even if it means making something small that doesn't get to be on the scale I'd like it to be? It's like, I think those are ways that we can shift in the present moment instead of wishing the present moment away.
Yeah, so well said. And I love what you said about it, like really being about throwing away what's right here in front of you, wanting something differently. I think that's so powerful. And I just want to add to that, entitlement is a frequency that's basically saying at the core of it to me energetically feels tied to waiting to be given something from someone else or something else and feeling frustrated that that's not happening. There's like a couple things I want to say about that because entitlement is like my big dead end frequency. It's the one I fall into the most, and it's very sneaky and it brings up a lot of shame. Like, how dare I feel entitled? This is icky. There's just so much there. There's so many layers. But when I sit with entitlement, it's basically waiting for like permission, a response, a outcome for me to like feel like I can embody my truth or my life or joy. There's something there in everything that we're talking about being rooted a little bit in victim consciousness instead of power. And that's more of that passivity. And so, what I do want to say is we're shifting the focus off of us. And that's what dead end frequencies do because they're trying to protect us. They're like trying to make us not feel shame and make us just feel good and make us feel like it's not me, it's everyone else. And that's why I was saying in episode 233, I think a lot of our parents who have been in dead end frequencies for like decades, I think it really changes your whole brain chemistry. Like it really, if you're in a dead end frequency for that long, I think it really keeps you in this place where you're no longer like malleable and open and able to change. And so I just want to say, like, whenever you notice a dead end frequency shifting the focus off of you, and for me, it's like, I've been so annoyed with Instagram lately. Like, this is such a small thing, but I'm like, I've been so annoyed with Instagram. And I was like, dude, the algorithm sucks. First of all, I'm so happy that I have the podcast because I just have been so frustrated. And Instagram has just been feeling really like clunky and like I'm putting good work out and not as many people as I'd like to see it are seeing it. And it's just been like very frustrating to me. And I realized, like, oh, I'm slipping into entitlement. Instead of me being like, should I change up how I'm doing it? Should I just keep pouring into magic hour? Should I take a step back from what I feel entitled to from literally Instagram of all places? There's really sneaky ways that it comes up. And I think when that happens, it's blaming Instagram, blaming the world, blaming an industry, blaming someone else. Instead of like, what can I do right here and now, including managing my expectations or letting go. I think we're also in this world where the narrative is like, you can have it all. And you should. Maximum enjoyment in this capitalistic overconsumption hellscape. You can have it all on demand, delivered to you right now. And I think we've all been like marinating in that current of energy our whole lives because like late stage capitalism is like there's a solution for everything. You can buy anything. Everything's been invented and every problem's been solved. And I think that there's also an element of that feeding our dead end frequencies of entitlement and everything too, because it's like, I don't get it. Like, why can't I have everything I want? And I think it bleeds into our manifestation practices. And it's like, hello, everything's on demand, on delivery. I'm doing all of the things. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, but this is a world of duality. And sometimes there's also greater soul lessons and like accepting what is, trusting the timing, doing everything in your power, but then also finding surrender and spaciousness and release and presence with what is instead of always trying to have more. It's such a complex cocktail of consciousness, and we're all different. And I'd have to do like individual readings to really get to the root. But that's just a thing I wanted to call out too is that, like, yeah, sometimes we don't get everything we want. And that's never the narrative. The narrative is never that in movies or TV or anywhere else. But sometimes it's for our highest good not to get everything we want, even if we're not seeing how yet. And sometimes the secret sauce to just enjoying life is just doing the best with what's in our power and releasing the rest and staying present.
Yes. Oh my God. So many amazing things. One thing that jumped out to me is I feel like there's even that tricky element in the idea of manifesting. It's like if you manifest correctly, you can have the life of your dreams. So it's like you can be completely happy and have everything you want. So you must just not be manifesting correctly because you don't have everything you want. It's like even that idea of we should have everything we want and we can have everything we want and it can be perfectly blissful in every moment has even slipped into the idea of manifesting, I feel like, for me and what's possible there and become a trap there. So I just loved that you brought that up. And I think that's so true too. It's like we think that everything should be max amazing at every moment. And I don't think that's what life is about. I feel like life is about our soul's growth. And we grow through challenge. So, if we all had like max enjoyment at all times, life would be so dull and boring, honestly, because nothing would have any weight because we wouldn't have journeyed to be there. And something else that popped up while you were talking, I saw this post that I thought was just so simple and interesting. This guy was like, if you're feeling stuck or if you're feeling challenged, I like to think of these three things. What's the side quest? If this were fun, what would it be like? And how can I make this enjoyable? And I just thought that was a really great way to like reframe our challenge. And it made me think again about like my journey as a creative, because I think that entitlement made me think I'm talented. I love this. I know it's what's right for me on this journey. So it should have immediately happened and I should have immediately found success. But in the pathway to not finding immediate success, I have been pushed to create. And I have therefore created a lot of things that I'm so proud of: films, a live show, sketches. Now I'm making these videos that I never would have made if things had just fallen into my lap and been handed to me. It created a container where I had to take action that expanded myself as a creative. Now, when I get opportunities, I have this whole arsenal of creation that I've made, and I have honed myself as a creative through the process of failure, if you want to look at it like that, or in moments I have, where it's like that has been almost like, the water against the stone to help me hone myself as a creative. And so, how can we take action within the stuck moment to, in this moment, create more of what we want? Or like, maybe I don't have all the tools I want in this moment, but with the tools I have, how can I make a day of creativity? How can I make a day full of love and connection, even if I don't have the romantic partner? And what we find within that, how that helps us expand, I think sometimes can be even more powerful than if we just get what we want instantly in our hand.
Yeah. What pops into my head is if you were a soul that's coming from oneness of love, where everything is just love, would you choose to come into a human story as being like a Veruca Salt character? Where everything is just like handed to you. It's like, Daddy, I want a golden ticket and I want an Oompa Loompa and I want this. Like, would that be interesting from a soul perspective to embody a human experience where it's all oneness and ease, just like in the spirit world? I just don't think so. Like, we will be going back to ease and love and oneness and everything that we need. And no character in a movie that's spoiled and gets everything they want without any struggle is, to me, interesting, dynamic, powerful. And so, on a soul level, like, why would we choose to live out that story when there's so much more juice and up level and creation and seeing really who we are within duality in different ways? But what you were saying too about almost like blaming yourself or thinking that you're doing something wrong because you're not manifesting what you want. I see this in my readings all the time because we personify the universe just like we do with angels and gods and our guides. It's that if then thinking that I always come back to, which is like, all projection. If I was doing this, then this is what would happen. And that's the way that we as humans try to control our experience or feel like we have any modicum of control in this, like floating on a rock through space. And so I think that we're like, if I did everything perfectly, then the universe would reward me in this way. And so it's like, okay, I didn't do everything perfectly and the universe isn't rewarding me in this way. So I must not be like a good girl. Like, it just feels very inner child to me of like, if you eat all your vegetables, then this is the reward you get. And so I think that there's also a way where it can become more of a perpetuation of patterns of shame and inner child wounding and perfectionism and victim consciousness. But all of that that's that negativity that Cassandra was talking about, where she's like, I'm trying to stay away from the negativity and stay positive. But that negativity of the shame, victim consciousness, all those things I just said, when you get to the root of them without taking them personally or on as a story about who you really are, but instead valuable information of what you're ready to relate to in a new way, that is when you start to step into new levels of power. And ironically, I feel like the more detached you are from outcomes, the more powerful the manifestation ability is. It's like a catch 22, but it goes back to what, we've said on this podcast a few times. Like, the universe is not trying to punish you. I don't think the universe is really like personally invested. It's like, it's not a human consciousness. It's a continual invitation for us to free ourselves to deeper levels. And it's mirroring that back to us over and over and over repeatedly. And so every low vibe emotion or negativity has the key to a deeper layer of our shackles. And when we take it, we find more freedom. I love those three things that you said, Claire, of like side quest and joy. And what if it was fun? Like, I almost feel like we're so used to being punished that like it's in our psyche everywhere as it comes to like higher powers and punishment, that like what if it wasn't a punishment but it was just a gift and a guide and something to mirror back our strength to us, and that it was never about an end result, it was always about the journey and doing the journey in the most joyful way that's in our power.
I love that. Doing the journey in the most joyful way that's in our power. I love that. And, I don't think this has to be then a denial of what you're hoping for or dreaming of, because we have those dreams in our heart of something. But I think sometimes the idea of those things is just an idea. And the reality of what we have is closer to that than we think, like we want connection. And sometimes I think we miss the connections we have in the hope of this dream of some other connection. Or we want, creative fulfillment, but we put this other idea of that creative fulfillment on a pedestal and miss the opportunities right in front of us for that. And so, how can we like notice all the ways that things are working for us in this moment too, while exploring the things that, like you said, are sort of these like keys to unlocking a deeper level of those shackles? It's like maybe that's the journey in and of itself, and really being in the joy of the journey in all of its wildness and surprise, I think is where the magic really is.
Absolutely. Authenticity and self love go hand in hand. And I really think authenticity is what we came here to do, is literally just be authentic. And when we follow our authenticity and honor our authenticity and detangle what isn't authentic but has been inherited or learned, that's when we connect with our highest timeline. And that's really what I think our souls came here to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Let's do one last one.
Okay, let's try this one. This is a question from Maggie. How do I overcome self doubt and questioning myself? I felt for a long time scared of my own power and have been led to embracing and honing it several times in my life. I've always ran from it, but I'm ready to start down what I feel is my highest path. I just constantly doubt if I'm making this all up. I'll compare myself to others like you and feel like an imposter. I know my doubt is a major block to accessing my gifts. I'm also terrified of walking this path and being seen. I look up to you so much, and you've expanded me to know I'll be okay. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for all that you do and share. I'm not sure I'd be at this place in my life ready to embrace myself if it wasn't for you. Taylor, could you suggest ways to strengthen and practice my connection with my angels? Also, I can feel my clairaudience trying to come online. Any suggestions for supporting that would be so helpful too. With love and gratitude, Maggie.
Oh, thank you for this, Maggie. That's so sweet. And I love that you're on this journey. There's a few things that I want to say here, and it's very synchronistic because this has been coming up so much with my mentees. And this is why what I was talking about in the beginning of the episode with like why my method is so focused on the witch wound and self doubt and the inner villain voice is because I think it's like the biggest spiritual block for people. I almost feel like once that's out of the way, the connection is just the fun part, the exciting part to explore. So there's been like a pattern coming up in my mentorship program that I also really see reflected in this question. And that is our higher self being debated with by our inner villain voice, our self doubt, our inner critic. And so there's already a part of you that knows deep down, I am connected. I want to go on this path. This is calling me. I'm excited about this. I know that I have angels and guides. Like there's that quiet, still part of you that knows that truth. And then there's the other part of your consciousness that's like, can I really do this? Is this really possible? So it's almost like higher self you with a capital Y and little you with a lowercase y battling for dominion in your consciousness. And that is a very common pattern. It's like I see it with my mentees all the time. They're like, I'm so frustrated about XYZ, but I also know it takes time and presence and I'm exactly where I need to be. So it's like the literally in one sentence, both voices will speak. And which one do you resonate with more? Resonates with a capital R. And so there's like kind of heart resonance with that uppercase and head resonance with the lowercase. And the head is just trying to keep us safe. And self doubt is a protector. It's literally just trying to keep you in an uncomfortable comfort zone. And so, with these two aspects of our psyche vying for our attention, one is trying to keep us safe, one is reminding us the truth of who we really are. When we are in that sort of in between place, it shows that you need to continue to sit in spaces where you can prove to yourself and continue to expand and develop in a way where that lowercase y has less and less and less to hold on to. And so, intuition and angelic connection and mediumship development, all of these things require being uncomfortable and full of doubt and doing it anyway, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It is the recipe to becoming the oracle. And I talk about this a lot in my mentorship program. Every single person feels it, including me. It took me thousands of readings before I got to a place where I actually just feel excited and grounded to connect instead of questioning before every single session, will something come through? What if everything's wrong? What if I guide them in the wrong way? It's like, those thoughts are always there because we were not raised in a society or a world that fostered this connection. Every single part of society is gaslighting us, is telling us that this isn't true, is saying that it's evil, is all of these things. And we've internalized all of that. So it's not unique to have these thoughts. In fact, it's the prerequisite to becoming the oracle is facing fear in some way and doing it anyway. That can be fear of your gifts. That can be fear of judgment. That can be fear of being ostracized from your family or community. There's a reclamation that's happening on this path when we feel the fear and do it anyway. And the more we sit with our angels and guides, the more we practice, the more we strengthen the muscle that allows us to feel the fear and do it anyway, the more that we strengthen that sense of bravery and fire and gutsiness, that is one of the most important parts of intuitive development. And that's why I keep harping on it so much, because like I was saying in the beginning, even people with the most advanced fundamentals who haven't done that work never see their full potential. They can be the most amazing evidential mediums in the world, getting the most crystal clear messages. But if they're not facing this part of the development journey, no one will ever hear them. And so, how does that help the spirit world? And so, we, by doing this work, are becoming the voices that spirit needs us to be. We're becoming the vessels for truth that the world needs. And even if you say the wrong thing or make a mistake, that doesn't matter when you're practicing. That doesn't matter when you're starting out. Just say it. Just strengthen that muscle of like, what are you making it mean? That's what I'm talking a lot with my mentees about. If you get something wrong, if you get in your head, if you disconnect from the link, what are you making it mean? Is your inner villain voice making it mean that you'll never be able to do this work, that you'll never be good enough, that, you're not really connected? And is that really what your higher self believes to be true deep down? Or is that just a fear that there's constant looking for evidence for? So that's the first thing that I want to say. And the terrified of being seen, it's like we all have these unique amalgamations of the witch wound, of ancestral wounds, of religious wounds, of like so many different puzzle pieces of consciousness coming into this work. And that's why the healing the witch wound is a prerequisite for my container, because it's by design that you are being called to this path and you have a fear of being seen. Like, that's not an accident. It's by design that I'm being called to this path. I was raised in a way that made me feel unsafe to disagree. And I'm in a world that's full of people I do not agree with in like what spirit is. So that is almost a good sign if this path is triggering like the fear to be seen, the fear to be heard, the fear to be other, different. That is by design, because intuitive development and soul development and growth are one and the same. And it's like a fast track to learning the lessons. And people in my mentorship program are having all sorts of things happen in their life at the same time as this program. And that's not an accident, because it's an accelerator. So the more that you understand that that's not unique to you, that every single person going down the path of intuitive development is afraid in some way or another. And it's a prerequisite to feel it and do it anyway. And the more you strengthen that muscle, it's like I was saying to my mentees, the difference between someone who is an actual professional writer and someone who says they're a writer is that people who say that they're writers only show up to write when they're inspired or they feel like it. People who are professional writers might not feel inspired, might not have ideas, might not know, but they have to turn in that script and they have deadlines and they're going to show up to write every single day, whether they're in flow or not. And it's the same with this work. If we show up every single day, whether we're feeling like mystical and supported and in gratitude with our guides, or we're feeling shitty and down on ourselves and afraid and in self doubt, if we can still make space for this work every day and connect every day, no matter how we're feeling, that's what makes us able to be professional in this space and able to show up reliably in this space, is just consistently doing it instead of saying we're doing it without doing it. And so with like the angelic connection and all of that, I really recommend the Be Your Own Angelic Intuitive Workshop series, because that is chock full of it. There's so much to say. And I also recommend episode 203 of Magic Hour, where I do a deep dive on all things angels. So there's so much there to say that it could be a whole episode in itself. So I don't really want to get too deeply into that part of the question, because it's just a whole separate question. So if you want to write in with any stories with intuitive development questions that are more specific, or things that are happening with your angels, or how clairaudience is coming in for you, feel free to do that. But just talking about angelic connection and clairaudience are too big of topics to tackle right here, right now. But I'm so happy that you're on your path, and I'm so excited for you. And just continue to sit in silence. We need so much more silence and spaciousness for this work. Like, we are constantly inundated with information. And then when we do sit down to meditate, our brain is like blah, 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 because it hasn't had 1 minute of spaciousness. And then when we do sit down to do a reading, it's like blah, 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 because that's the 1 minute of silence it's getting. So the more we can sort of breathe and connect and just be in the present moment without any stimuli and feel comfortable in silence and spaciousness, the more of a runway we're gearing up for our angels and guides to come down with their information. So I really recommend that. And then, of course, like daily card pulls, journaling, introspection, like just creating that sacred space every single day, whether you're feeling inspired to or not. And that is what will take you to the next level.
Yes, I love doing this podcast with you, Taylor, and I'm so grateful to the community, because it just without fail is like your questions are things I needed to hear. Our conversations are things that help me grow and expand. So I'm just so grateful for all of you, and for you, of course, Taylor. And a couple things jumped out I wanted to touch on. One thing that I thought was really beautiful that you referenced that I think can help me in my moments of fear is thinking about these things on a greater scale. And you mentioned like we need intuitives. We need people doing this work. And I think that can help you kind of step past the fear. Like in my own career, I like to think of people like I love Jim Carrey. He's one of my idol actors. And I'm so grateful that he took the leap to be a performer. I'm so grateful that he worked past his fear of failure and did it anyway, because he has given me as an audience member so much. And so I like to think about that with my own work of like, I am doing this for a greater calling than just my own selfish joy that I get from it. I feel like I have a gift and I want to put things out into the world that uplift people and make them laugh and smile or feel seen or open their minds. Like that is my highest aim with the work that I do. And it can help me kind of take the leap when I feel a little bit like, oh God, what am I doing? Who am I to think that anyone cares what I have to say or wants to see my work? It's like, no, I'm trying to create something for the world. And it's a higher calling than just my needs. So, that applies so deeply to this work, like what Taylor has created. And I love that you echoed that in your question that Taylor has given you so much. So think what you can be giving to the world if you choose to feel the fear and do it anyway. And then the other thing that I just wanted to offer as well, I just, because I love that, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I know we all have so many examples of that in our life of like, I was afraid to do this and then I did it. And in doing it, I became stronger and braver. And the next difficult thing was easier to try because I'd proven to myself I can do hard things. And a really stark example for me in my life was when I was 18, I moved to New York by myself. And I ended up doing that where I moved to a new place alone multiple times in the following like 5 or 6 years. Moved to New York. It was the first time I immediately freaked out. I wanted to leave. I had like a total meltdown. And then it was okay. And I acclimated. And then the next place, same thing. The first 2 weeks, meltdown, wanted to leave, hated it. And then, I figured it out and I was okay. And I felt like each time that period of time of the freak out and immediately wanting to bail got shorter and shorter. And then when I moved to LA, I didn't have it at all. I just was like, cool, yeah, new place, great, I'm excited. And so I just felt like that was such a tangible example of like every time you choose to do something scary, you strengthen your ability to do hard things. And it is a muscle that builds upon itself. And it's like the greatest gift we can give ourselves to take those chances and do what scares us because it's like shining that light on the fear. It's like the fear then starts to dissipate. And watching your journey has been so beautiful, Taylor. Obviously, I was there with you in the beginning when you were first trying it, and it was kind of nerve wracking. And now, like, it's just been so beautiful to see your journey. So I hope that you can also take that inspiration from Taylor's path. Like it didn't just fall into her lap easily. Like she worked at it and pushed through what was scary. And that's how she is where she is today. So if she can do it, so can we.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's so true and so beautifully said. And I just want to say too, and this is very synchronistic because so much of this has been coming up in the mentorship container. But I was telling my mentees a story last night about how when I was in the second week of Arthur Finley College, I was in a teacher named Val Williams' class. And she is like a really amazing, well known medium who actually has a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, I think. I need to read that. She was the teacher that I had for week 2. She was so sweet. She gave me a reading and she mistook my mom for my grandma. And it was probably a moment where she, for some reason, thought I was like 18. I told her that I was actually 33, and she was like, what? At the time, because she was like, you're very mature for your age. And I was like, Val, just out of curiosity, how old do you think I am? She's like, 18, 19. I was like, I'm 33, about to turn 34. And she's like, oh, heavens. Oh my God. It was really funny. So, like, in that moment where she was reading for me and she mistook my mom as a grandma, she didn't let that derail her. She wasn't like, oh my God, a mistake. I'm not connected. I'm not tapped in. I shouldn't be doing this. She was like, oh, yeah, mom. Oh, okay. Anyway, what she's saying is blah, 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 blah. And she just kept going. And that's what I was saying to my mentees. Like, when you're at this fragile moment of just starting out on the development journey, it's like we're making mistakes mean things that they don't really mean instead of taking the lesson from them and moving on and knowing we're connected. And in some ways, like the people who are the most advanced, what makes them the most advanced is that they're developed enough to roll with the nose and not get completely derailed from them and just keep it moving. And so I loved that example of her making a mistake even after like a lifetime of doing mediumship, because it just shows like, yeah, they happen. And it doesn't mean that you're not connected and meant to do this work. Like, no medium or psychic or intuitive is 100% accurate all of the time because we're also human. And the more we give ourselves grace for that, like, that's the true development.
Yeah, it's like giving ourselves the space to fail. If we don't have that space, like we can't expand. And I love what you're saying about not making it mean something. We do that about everything, or maybe not everything, but we do it a lot. And it's so powerful to notice like, just because I made a mistake doesn't mean I'm not good, or just because I didn't get this opportunity doesn't mean I shouldn't do this. We don't need to attach. And yeah, giving ourselves that grace to just explore and let, the mistakes happen and not make them mean anything.
Absolutely. And the last thing that I want to say is it always comes back to ego versus service. Service is like the authentic vibration of what we're meant to be doing and just feels so good to help other people, to be in service to our higher self, to the world around us, to the spirit world, all of those things. And sometimes it can be a very tricky gray area with wanting to do a good job, because that can be service led, where it's like, I want to be the best voice I can for the person and the spirit. But it can also be a sneaky way that ego is getting involved. Like, I want to do a good job to prove to myself that I am good enough, to prove to myself that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's when we're not in service anymore. That's when we're in ego, and it can be very, very sneaky.
And if needing to do a good job gets in the way of us doing the job, like if it needs to be perfect or I won't do it, and it totally defeats the whole purpose because it's standing in your way of actually doing it. And the most important thing is to do it, imperfect or not.
In fact, the readings that I've cared the most about go the worst. Truly, the readings that I want to like impress someone or do a good job never go well. And the readings where I'm just like, I completely trust that what fills the hour needs to go amazing. So the more that we care, the more we're in judgment and out of the power. The more that we care, we're in tension and control, and the less we're in flow. And that is not the highest conducive condition for the best readings. And so it's a practice to get out of judgment and into power. It's a practice to get out of imagination and into power. And that's why you have to show up every single day and not let the mistakes or the crunchy times derail you or make it mean something that this isn't for you, but instead to get the information in the lesson, to understand the pattern, to understand how to create your best conditions for connection. And eventually it will continue to blossom and unfold in beautiful, beautiful ways.
Yes. Let success be showing up. That's it. You showed up, that you were successful, however it pans out that day.
Yeah. You felt the fear and did it anyway. Couldn't think of anything more successful than that.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. So let's transition to sitting with spirit. Hi, my loves. Before we get into sitting with spirit, I want to tell you something about why this episode is a super special one, because it comes out my birthday week. My birthday is November 18th. And if you get a lot of value out of Magic Hour podcast and you want more, I am so excited to say that I'm introducing a special giveaway for the Hummingbird community. So I usually just do an angels and ancestor reading giveaway for each milestone. This time, for my birthday and the holidays coming up, there will be 3 winners for the next giveaway. One person will win a reading with me, and 2 will win any 3-part workshop of their choice. And if you have already taken all of my 3-part workshops, then you can get free entry into my mediumship workshop that is going to be coming up in 2026. So I am super stoked. And the way to enter the giveaway, which by the way, if you've already entered, then you're already in. The ways to enter is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or both. Each is one entry. The next way is to subscribe to us on YouTube. And then the last way is sharing Magic Hour Podcast on your Instagram and tagging us. Send us a screenshot of any of those entries. So it's 4 possible entries total. Send a screenshot of that to contact@magichourpod.com to be entered. And the giveaway will happen when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. We've already hit it on Spotify, so now we just need to hit it on Apple, and there will be 3 winners for this grand giveaway. This is a beautiful birthday present to me. I appreciate the support so, so much. I love you guys so, so much. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to Sitting with Spirit, my loves, the part of the podcast where I sit with our angels, our guides, our loved ones in the spirit world, and give the messages for the collective. As always, take what resonates with you, leave the rest, and if you know someone who could use the message, please send it their way. So the first thing I want to get into today was a message that actually came to me while I was sitting in the power that felt very relevant to share. And this message was, happily ever after is a choice. It's not a hope. It's not a dream. It's not something that's a sign of worthiness from the universe. Happily ever after exists in present moment choices. And sometimes that might look different than what an earlier version of self thought happily ever after would look like. Sometimes that is different than an outgrown or outdated dream. But happily ever after is following our heart moment to moment, honoring our truth, being authentic, being in our power, choosing our healing journey, choosing love and joy. A series of present moments of those choices is what creates our happily ever after. It's not a destination. And I think sometimes we are waiting to be handed our happily ever after because of media portrayal. And it's like, okay, I got this job, this person, this house. Now they lived happily ever after. And I think the more we deconstruct that and take the power back in our own hands and realize that it's all about crafting and choosing our happily ever after, there's a lot of freedom in that. Happily ever after is an inside job, not a permission slip from the universe, not something we're handed externally, not something that overrides our inner world experience. Sometimes we can get things that we think would be our happily ever after, but if we haven't done the inner work, regulation, and if we can't come back to gratitude for exactly where we are here and now and what we do have, then we'll stay in the pattern of wanting more or not feeling safe to enjoy what we've created, or, the same stuff follows us into that chapter. So, happily ever after is an inside job, it's a choice. And that's so freeing because we can choose moment to moment to be happy and to show up for ourselves in really the most important way possible, which is listening to our heart and giving ourselves what our heart is asking for. I have in my notes that I took from when this message came through that listening to our heart, coming back to what is in our power in the present moment, regulating our nervous system enough for spaciousness and not a constant seeking for more, and being grateful for what we do have is the formula for happily ever after. So, have you internalized lies about happily ever after? Are you waiting for permission to be happy? Are you picturing your future as this like far off vision or dream of happiness? And how can you come back to what is in your power in the present moment to choose and create your happily ever after? And so, as I was starting to tune into the angel messages for this week, I first felt just so much love from our angels, and I saw this really beautiful golden light. And I saw this like surfboard. I got this feeling of just kind of riding the energetic waves, going with the flow. And I got the message, follow the warmth. And I got this feeling of right now, what is nourishing to us? What feels aligned and warm and like it's taking care of us and regulating us and resetting us and filling up our cup? And the feeling that I got too is that we're being told intuitively by our guides what those things are. And there's something here about rewiring deep subconscious beliefs that like it has to be hard or it has to be a struggle or anything worth having is difficult. And there's this permission to be nourished and to have our cup full and to go towards that and to give ourselves permission to listen to what that is. And I saw a third eye block coming up where it's like, can it really be that simple? Can it really be that obvious? And the sense that I get is like, we have this lit up, like, who are we with? What are we doing that brings out this joyful, lit up part of us? What feels nourishing and heart led and joyful? And how can we incorporate more of that? Or even what feels more restorative and rejuvenating and what our body is asking for right now. There's a sense of just giving yourself permission for ease and realizing that when self divination comes through, like, yeah, it can be obvious. It can be simple. It can really be that easy. And that's the feeling that I get intuitively is that your angels are like, it can be that easy. It is that easy. Listen to it because truth is simple. And so within that, I feel like we're in this moment of deeper awakening and blossoming and intuitive development. And part of that is giving ourselves permission to feel good. And then the next feeling that I got from our angels, and I know I'm a broken record with the crown chakra block, but for a lot of us, there's going through this moment with a lot of puzzle pieces that are unknown and being in the unknown. And as I was tuning into it, it almost felt like a mental paralysis of like examining the problems, examining what isn't enough, not being able to think creatively past the blocks, getting stuck mentally in what isn't working. And with the South Node in Virgo right now, we're collectively moving away from perfectionism, control, overthinking, worrying, all of those things, fear of judgment. And we're moving towards the North Node in Pisces, which is intuiting, feeling, dreaming, forgiving, releasing, and coming back to a higher vibe of love. And I feel like right now for this year and a half with the nodes in Virgo and Pisces, I feel like there are these purposeful soul obstacle courses that are bringing up a lot of big changes and shakeups and fear and unknown. And when we try to reason or logic or plan our way through it, it feels blocked. It feels like we're stuck in the vibration of lack and scarcity and the problem. And so I feel like the jigsaw puzzle of our consciousness and what that is mirroring in our physical experience is setting up perfect opportunities for us to shift our toolbox to dreams, intuition, creativity, and feeling. And trying to be too planned out and coordinated just feels like it's not working right now. And we're starting to exercise new muscles where we are so indoctrinated into this society of control and the crown chakra and planning and 5-year plans and all of these things. And I feel like right now there's a note of a lot of unknown, a little bit of chaos, and not letting that feel paralyzing, but instead taking it as an invitation to shift your energetic strategies to what will work now, which is that Pisces North Node, and starting to feel your way through in a way that isn't as linear or predictable, but instead follows where the currents of consciousness are leading you. And then I pulled a card for the week. And as I was tuning into the card, I felt our angels cheering us on and talking about a lot of upgrades that we're going through. And I saw my symbol for career. So I feel like a lot of people are either like up leveling in their career, or growing in their career, or changing careers. There's a lot of like career up level stuff that I feel coming up. And then I also saw the symbol of sunrise. And when I see that as a symbol, it's like the light coming back after a dark period, or finding clarity, or regaining the light in some way. And I pulled the strength card this week, which is a major arcana card, which shows that this is like a major soul moment for us where very significant milestones on our markers of life are coming up. And strength is the card of courage, strength, and sort of like staying power. I think of sunflower energy when I think of the strength card. Sunflowers are so resilient. They always grow to the sun, towards the sun, no matter the circumstances. And I think adaptability is a big word with the North Node in Pisces as well. Where do we need to be more adaptable? Where do we need to open to change? And how is that a new form of strength that has not historically been as practiced in our lineage ancestrally? And so with this, I feel like we're in these moments where we've had to be so strong, and that is also by design as part of the up level, because it's really showing us what we're made of. We are in this moment collectively and therefore individually where we've had to be so brave and strong through times of major change and transition and unknown, and what feels like a little bit of chaos in the unknown. Like some of it feels really out of control. And it's been asking us to lean into new, deeper reserves of our personal power and our strength. And because of that, it's really showing us how freaking strong we are and what we're made of. And our angels cheering us on, because this is part of the up level. Like we will look back on us at this time, navigating the unknown at the crossroads and times that we've needed to be so strong. And we will thank ourselves for making the most powerful choice that we have in our power in this moment. So there's a lot of pride from our angels when I pulled this card, and they acknowledge how strong you've had to be, and they see that. And it's like they, with the golden light thing and the going to where you're fed and nourished and taken care of, and giving yourself permission to choose happily ever after right now. I feel like they just want like the rewards and the payoffs of all of the strength and the hard work you've been put through and what you've been putting in. And there's just so much love from them to you. So on the strength card, there's like a really beautiful big lion, and it's such a symbol of bravery and courage and leadership through the unknown. So no matter what you're navigating, I do feel like there's something in the collective of a current shift, an up level, and rewards for how strong you've been. And also realizing you can never go backwards to the version of self that was not this strong, because you've unlocked and you've up leveled. And only by looking backwards can you realize how far you've really come with that. So transitioning to the mediumship now, I had such a beautiful, sweet young girl in the spirit world came through. I would place her somewhere between 6 or 7. She came to me as a ballerina student. And she didn't give me too much evidence about who she was, because I feel like this was more, as always, it's a message for the collective because this goes out to so many people. But she was just very like simple and to the point. And she gave me the feeling that who this was for was her ballet teacher. She was basically showing me that as a young girl in her ballet class, she was not always on top of it. She gave me this feeling of her being like a little bit spacey or dreamy or in her own world, didn't really take direction very well. And that there were like a lot of other students there that were a lot easier than her to teach, that, you know, got the routines quicker and were super into it. And she just felt very much on an island in her own world. And she was saying that, you know, sometimes her spaciness, and I do feel like there was a little bit of like a learning disability, that would get her penalized at home, or that made things harder for her. And like she wasn't trying to be difficult. That's just genuinely her experience when she was young. And she was showing me that like her ballet teacher actually praised her for that, praised her for being safe enough to march to the beat of her own drum, for doing her own thing, for following her own heart. There were ways that the dance teacher encouraged her for being authentically her, even if that was more difficult to teach or black sheep compared to the rest of the class. And she basically was saying, like, you do not realize what a big impact that had on me. That little act of kindness that the teacher never thought anything of again had a ripple effect to rewire and change her entire narrative about how she talked about herself as she got older. And her message today is that kindness and acts of service and love to not only the people in your life, but your community impact people in these ripple effect ways that are so much greater than we're even conscious of as we're doing them. And I feel like there is such an important emphasis on acts of kindness and the world needing extra acts of kindness right now, and you not realizing how healing, life-changing, and expansive that is for the people that are on the receiving end of them. And I especially felt like with kids, this is really important, like role models of who are mentally sound and encouraging them to be powerful and authentic and like celebrate the truth of who they are. And this girl was also talking about the importance of art programs for children. She was saying that art programs for children are so important because it helps them build the muscles that will eventually lead to intuitive connection and not losing their intuitive connection. And that if they're not in a space to be like creative and present and free through reading, writing, dance, painting, creation of any sort, crafting, it doesn't matter. It builds that same muscle for them that later in life will turn into trusting their heart and their intuition in a way that other avenues that they go down just doesn't scratch the itch in the same way. She was really emphasizing the importance of art for kids, art programs for kids, and even the teachers, like volunteers or teachers that are doing artistic things to help kids, that having more of a ripple effect in healing the world and our consciousness than we even know. And I thought it was really interesting how she was saying that that connection to art and creativity then leads to more intuitive, heart-led adults. I thought that made a lot of sense, and it was just a really beautiful message. And so you never know who's watching you. You never know if it's a child or just a person in need. You never know how your act of kindness inspires them to do acts of kindness in return. And we can all use more of those positive ripple effects, more hope, and more showing with our actions that we love each other and we care about each other and we're here for each other. So I hope that you all have a beautiful rest of your week, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Magic Hour podcast. We are so happy you're here. I absolutely love to connect with you all on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. I love to get your thoughts on each episode, and I get so excited to get your emails to contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss a new episode in your inbox. We have so many amazing guests right around the corner as always. Please make sure to send your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to contact@magichourpod.com, and we'll enter you into an angel reading giveaway with me, which is just my favorite thing, to get to connect with the Hummingbird community in that way. You get a bonus entry if you also send a screenshot of your YouTube subscription and also a screenshot of sharing us on your story and tagging us at Magic Hour Podcast on Instagram. The next giveaway will happen when when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We so appreciate you sharing the podcast with other magical people, and it really helps us keep this project alive. To learn more about me, my work, to book a reading with me, to take a workshop, please visit angelsandamethyst.com. And remember, you are magic.